Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. My name is Kristen Dorr, and I'm the Integro webinar moderator. If you're new to Integro or our webinar series, we do monthly webinars. We keep them to 30 minutes because we want to make sure it is a valuable and efficient use of your time. And on the line with me today, I have Jeff Dunning. He is the VP of Support and Strategic Accounts here at Integro, and he's also one of our founding members. So he's been here for over 20 years. He has a ton of experience to share and just knowledge to share with you guys today, and he's going to be talking about covering your assets, a success roadmap for content analysis, protection, and cleanup. Before I let Jeff take it away, I just want to quickly note that if you have any questions at any time during his presentation, you can ask them in the question bar, and I will hop back on at the end of his presentation to go through the questions, and Jeff will answer your questions for you. So Jeff, I'll let you take it from here.
Great, thank you, Kristen. So we're going to walk through a little bit of a quick journey down a path for some content analysis, protection, and cleanup. So our agenda kind of looks a little bit like this. We'll just talk a little bit about the journey and the whys and that stuff, and really jump into a program around discovering, review, cleansing, remediation, modernization, and enrich around a content analysis journey. So I think everyone on the phone understands the problem that we're dealing with, right? Large group, rapidly growing volumes of data, uncertainty around sensitivity, regulations, GDPR, all that stuff. But we also have the problem of a large, complex content footprint, making migrations to modern platforms difficult and time-consuming. So it's the second part of this whole thing is, not only do I have to regulate, I have to be able to get rid of my sensitive data and comply with regulations, but I want to I want to leverage modern platforms to get operational efficiencies and start, being able to be a little bit more agile. And these vast amounts of content are kind of holding us all back from that. That's what we're seeing with our customers. So basically what we've been doing recently is, helping customers mitigate these problems through really three items that we always look at when we're doing that. So the first being cost, like what's the cost to store all this stuff, and how do I reduce my cost and then put money back into the business? What's my risk? So our classified information, our personal information, the legal review. How do I get rid of my risk? How do I, make my review content a little bit smaller? So those are the things that we've always been chasing, cost and risk around that. And then the third pillar is really value, right? Content platform transformation, maybe getting the content services in the cloud, browse versus share, right? Let's get some metadata and tagging out there so I can search for my content versus browsing, right? So those types of things, the changing workforce and wanting to do that, and then really begin leveraging machine learning and AI to understand what's more value with my context. So we really need to do a content analysis on our platform to, kind of address all three of these pillars here. And that's kind of what we've been working towards, and what I'm going to share a little bit with you today. So the why, I think we all understand the why. We have regulatory drivers, we got GDPR, we have all that stuff that we're all kind of I'm dealing with today. We worry about data breaches and risk of our reputation, obligations around privacy and HIPAA and all that stuff, and those are the things we've been hearing over the years. And what we're also starting to hear now is things around operational efficiencies. How can I make my content more actionable? The digital transformation type of conversations that are happening. How can I share with my external partners and just really kind of use my content, better for me? And then I want to get to these new content platforms. I want to migrate my content. Maybe I want to go to OneDrive or Boxes of the world and get it into the cloud and be able to take advantage of that agility that the cloud starts to offer me. And what's pulling me back is just these vast amount of data. And what do I migrate? How do I migrate? How do I figure out what should go and when? And that's kind of really the challenge is that. Why are companies failing? Why are we talking, companies we talk to, and why are they struggling with it much? At top of the list is just that C-level approval and support. You need to have backing of the organization to go down this path. We're going to hear it over and over as I talk for the next 30 minutes or so, but it's a journey. It's not a 60-day project. It's not, something that's short and easy, but it's gonna take time. So having that approval and support is important. not including the right stakeholders, right? We want to govern and manage our content, so we want legal and compliance to be part of it. We want to bring in operational efficiencies. We need the business to be to have a seat at the table when we go through this type of stuff. So we have to get the right people in there. We have to get our employees on board. We have to make sure that we're making their life easier, not harder, right? We're looking for efficiencies. We're looking to support the changing workforce, right? We talk about the millennials, but it's important to know, right? They're used to search versus browse. A lot of us are browse. We have had big folder structures. We want to change that methodology, search. How do we get that done? Companies don't know where to start. It's huge. We terabytes and terabytes and terabytes of data. Where do I start? How do I know where to start? How do I know where I'm going to get the best value for my buck? How do I put value around all my content out there to know kind of where I should go? We talk about it being complex. Some organizations don't realize the complexity of that. So they jump in without the proper planning, without looking at consistent data layers and all those types of things, without having policies in place. So they believe it's easier than it really is, and they jump in and they hit a roadblock day one, and it kind of pushes them back. And then change management. This is change. It's absolutely going to change the way organizations operate. Content's going to be in different places. Security might be a little bit differently. The tools that we use might be a little bit differently. There's this ongoing concept of good enough. A lot of organizations are looking at going away from these rigid requirements and saying, hey, if I can get 80% of my requirements here, I can build a process that might get me through the rest of it, and this is better. I can get to that solution really fast without having to go through months and months of development to hit every single one of my requirements. But that requires change management and employee buy-in. So those are some of the reasons that companies fail trying to get around this type of stuff. So let's just dive into the part we all came for, but to a little bit about the program. And these are kind of the steps that we're driving our customers through today. Many of them are at different phases of this program. We've learned a lot along the way. It definitely isn't where we started when we started doing this stuff a few years back, but it's kind of where we are right now. So the roadmap really has a couple steps in it. So discovering review, this is about finding the content, reviewing the content, understanding that content. Of course, we'll get into more details of all these. Cleansing that content. So we talk about getting rid of the redundant, outdated, and trivial type content, right? Getting rid of the stuff, and we're going to talk about what fits into each one of these categories, because I think it goes beyond. A lot of people think of this as old and duplicate and stuff, and I think it goes beyond that, right? It's like content generated by processes and machines, and maybe we don't need all the content, all the stuff. So understanding why a piece of content is created, and do I really need it? How long do I need it? And that type of stuff. So it goes a little bit beyond just the normal stuff we used to think about. And then remediation around sensitive data, right? How do I handle this stuff? Do I have to secure it? Do I just delete it? I might need some of it. We'll talk around some of the options there, but this whole world is changing a lot around sensitive data. In the past, we've all tried to either just delete it all and not have it, or kind of put it in these secured locations. We build these networks to handle maybe credit card information. We store HIPAA stuff in different places and stuff like that, but sometimes we're doing it for the wrong reasons. We don't need the credit card number or the social security number. We might need the piece of content, the artifact, some information on it, and we can mask and redact that. And we'll talk about options for that. And then modernize and tag, and it goes back to search versus browse. It goes back to easily find my content. Get away from all those levels of folder, and if I can find it and use it and make it more actionable, I start getting towards operational efficiency. So how do I do that? What are the things that are going to lend towards being able to modernize my platforms? How do I use a data cleanup process to begin doing some of this stuff? And then enrich, and this is the exciting part. If we can clean up and get things to where it begins, we can start doing intelligent business processes. We can start leveraging AI and machine learning to really kind of do some nice stuff, not taking burden off of end users to having to put in metadata when they save a piece of content and that type of stuff. And there's lots of stuff. The market is just exploding in these areas. A lot of companies are struggling to understand how to take advantage of it. So the first step in the process is discover and review. And This is the part that a lot of us have been doing for a while, doing analysis of this data. There's great tools on the marketplace that do in-place data or content analysis against large volumes of data, against multiple data sources, and they begin to give you the information you need to start understanding not only the content of data, but the context of data. Where is it located in my data footprint, right? Who's using that data? How am I creating that data? Those types of things, right? So being able to uncover this stuff and then going back out to data owners or process owners and understanding that. So a lot of this has been happening. The problem that a lot of companies stall on is, what do I do next? Now that I have this information, how do I make this information a little bit more actionable for me? How can I use it to go? So those solutions need to be, there's a lot of products on the marketplace, but we're looking for highly efficient and intelligent solutions. I don't want to just get some metadata. I need more than a create date and an access date. I need more than a file name. In some cases, I need more than just, the full text index. I need all that stuff to be able to come together, and I need to be able to look at it in different scenarios. So we need to be able to gather that data, maybe do some additional analytics after I cull it down to sets around certain information. I need to store that intelligence for ongoing understanding. It can't be a one shot. It can't be a go find all my files that haven't been accessed in 7 years and give that back to me, because I might want to say, oh, give me all the files in 7 years that are in this folder structure, and then I'd have to perform that again. I want to be able to do all that stuff on the fly, so that intelligence should be stored. And then it's advanced search capabilities. A lot of the tools out there now allow you to do some advanced analytics. They have some auto classification technologies and stuff like that. So we want to get beyond just searching for terms or people's names or dates and size and stuff, which are super helpful in a lot of areas. But we need all the other stuff. We need regular expressions. We need be able to find a word within 5 words of the other and really get to that level of understanding so that we can do the next steps. So that's kind of the tool you want. We've been doing discover and review for a while, right? The piece that changes a little bit is now in that discover and review process, we want to start to assign value to content. So we want to start looking at our content in subsections and capitals and buckets, right? But we want to understand the value of that. And the value has a lot of factors. That value number is going to give us direction as what we can do with it next. And this is the part that we really have started doing more work on and believe that this is that next step of content analysis, right? Is that content human generated? Is it process generated? Is it application generated? They all mean differently. They all have different values. If it's human generated, change management is a lot easier, right? Go to human and say, okay, you're generating this content. We're going to now save it in this new place, and you're going to have to save these 3 metadata fields. Simple, it's a discussion, a little bit of change management, a little bit of training, and boy, we're moving away with that, right? So maybe the migration effort is a lot smaller with that. Process generated, it could be a bigger task. We might have to re-engineer a process, change a couple steps. And then application generated, maybe we can't change that application. Maybe it's a homegrown application, but it's going to take months of development to allow us to take advantage of maybe a new content services platform, or change the way the log files are being driven, because today we're putting sensitive data in the log file from the application. So take some of the value there, and then look at the other factors. And there's a couple here, but each organization has different ones. What's the effort? If I'm going to a new content services platform, what's my migration effort? If I don't want this application generating this content anymore because it's got sensitive data in it, what's my change management process? How much process re-engineering do I have to do? What's my record and retention requirements on it, right? So we want governance and management to be part of all this stuff. So as we're looking forward, as we start looking at this content, and we might be cleaning up the old stuff, but what's the other stuff I have, and how do I start to govern that? How do I make sure that content, as I'm creating content today, I'm giving that content expiration dates, I'm giving it time frames to live. They could be modified in the past, but we're not repeating our problem. We're trying to eliminate our problem and as we go forward. So we put these huge efforts in, but are we really putting in the steps and the processes today to make sure that you don't have to come back and do this again in 18 months because you have a problem again? So this is the step here that kind of changes a little bit in discovery and review. There's a lot of process and tools that go around to come up with those values, but it really gives you a really good understanding of the content you have. And then once you discover, review, and value it, you really want to go around to cleansing it, right? And cleansing it has just a few items. You can delete stuff based on policies. Hey, if it's old and hasn't been accessed, then I can get rid of it. Delete is always the easiest, right? We're going to involve the data owners. The business is going to be part of this, and they're going to help us get through that, right? Delete might be the easiest, not always the one that we can pull off. We're not always comfortable deleting, right? Concept of quarantine helps us out in that. Move stuff someplace for 6 months in a secure location if we cry. If someone says, hey, I really need that data, I don't know what you do with it, but I need it. It gives us some protection there. So delete and quarantine. We want to look at removing copies where applicable. Sometimes copies are needed for security, that type of stuff. We definitely want to do duplicates and temporary. And temporary files, there's a whole class of them. I always encourage organizations when they do cleanup type stuff, use search terms like backup, use terms like copy, use search terms, because you're going to be surprised how many areas of your data have things like, hey, I'm going to copy all this data over here for a couple days, and then while I change my folder structure, and the copy never gets deleted. People make backups of data because they just want to be concerned, right? All those words, archive and stuff like that, to find all that, that's all that temporary duplicate, non-access data that we can go after and start looking at that stuff and get it away. And then from a cleansing standpoint, really around the sensitive data area, identify processes producing that content. So we've found over and over again on smaller applications that you're using for very specific locations. You might be in the finance industry, and that application's processing credit cards for some reason. That small application is actually leaving credit cards behind in log files. That needs to be fixed. It's a process that has to change. It's an application that has to change. A quick story, an experience, and this is a great example of why you want to get down to this level. Is we're working in a financial institution, and we just found a boatload of images. They're basically screen captures that had credit card information and stored off in a location on some file shares. And we dug deeper and looked at the process and stuff, and basically it was nothing more than a system access problem. This group of people had access to a green screen where that information existed, and this group of people who needed that information did not have access to it. So instead of trying to figure out how to get access to it, they had Group A take screenshots and save it off so Group B can use it. Right? A process that you fix, you eliminate this sensitive data problem, the content goes away, risk and everything. So diving into this beyond just the rot type of business is really beneficial for companies, especially around sensitive, regulated type information that we're looking at. All right. And then we get into remediation, and this is the next step of stuff. So this is where organizations have been struggling with that whole sensitive data, social security numbers, HIPAA, credit card numbers, all that stuff. I have content. I might need the artifact. There's information I need in there. I need to save it, but I don't need to see the social security number. I don't need to see the credit card number. What do we do with that, right? How do we get rid of it? Yeah, we want to delete it, but there's a lot of different reasons why we might have to keep it. Is it a record? Does it have value to the business, right? The business says, I can't use it. I need it for these reasons. How do we get rid of it? So there's options for that today. There's ways we can do that, right? So secure, we can move or encrypt it. If we move it, does it have effects on underlying systems? Do we eliminate people that have it? Some of those really secure networks are expensive to operate. So secure, while it's nice, it's not always the best answer. We're finding more companies are going after the master or redact. Alter the content in place. We don't have to change the process. We don't have to change the application. We remove the risk while allowing the access to the artifact and the information they need, but the risky data is not in there, right? So mask or redact, you can change the numbers, you can give the last four, you can just black it out, put X's in its place, so many different options. It can run as a schedule, you can do it every single night, go and clean up this content. So masking and redacting in place is becoming a popular option for that. Along with that, you have tokenization, where you can replace the original, say, social security number or credit card number or something like that with a token. So this way you can still manage the original for people who might need to see the original while removing the risk for the masses, for the other people who are asking it. So specific business problems this might be a benefit for them. It's a little more work, a little more managing. We're managing multiple pieces of content sometimes, but you still have access to the original data if you so need that as a later part in time. So these are areas that are really seeing growth. We could do this masking and redaction on images and all kinds of stuff. I've seen it done against pictures of driver's license and all kinds of things. So really helping with the sensitive data cleanup aspect of this while not affecting underlying systems and making the challenge a little bit bigger than it has to be. So now we've gone through a process where we've stepped through kind of three areas, right? We reviewed our content, we understand it a little bit better, we kind of begin to start cleansing our rot. We have value about the stuff we're keeping, sensitive data is out there. So now our content should be a little bit cleaner, it should be a little bit safer and all that type of stuff. So what do we do next? Right now we understand it all, and I don't want to repeat this process again. I don't want to go through a year worth of cleansing and all that stuff. We want to keep going down the path of that. So what are some of my options to do next? And these are the next level challenges that organizations are facing. Modernization. Modernization is all about taking advantage of leveraging new content services platforms. Everybody, whether that be in the cloud, maybe it's a hybrid solution, maybe, those types of things. But these solutions are now providing us with the ability to leverage things beyond that we can't do with file shares, things beyond that we can't do with my documents on a person's workstation when we think about unstructured content. But now that I understand my content, I can look at cloud-based solutions. I can start providing access to my content anywhere on any device, right? What does that mean? Well, we definitely have to have a long-term content strategy. That's a discussion in and of itself. Leveraging metadata that's similar, kind of search versus browse. I keep repeating myself, but that's just a huge thing that's coming up. It's your new clientele are looking for that. We're getting used to it. We do so much stuff on our mobile phones. Browsing is not very, just doesn't work well. We want to search. So how do I make my content searchable versus forcing you to browse through folder areas? How do I leverage metadata and tags, auto classification type technologies, right? I want to be able to put some metadata on my content. I'm tired of just being able to search by a file name or maybe by an owner or something like that. I want to know more about that content, but how do I not put a burden on my end users to start doing that, right? You'd be surprised in our data analysis where we're able to locate, organizations have been doing it for the longest time. They've been using folders as metadata. Honestly, folder structure is your metadata. So how do I take that? How do I use my content analysis project to produce to give me actionable data that I can then say, okay, you know what all these folder names? They become metadata. I put it on the content services platform. Now I have this metadata off these folders. I'm leveraging what we've built over the years, and I'm just presenting it in a fashion that's a little bit easier to use, right? It's going to give me those efficiencies I'm looking for. And then auto classification, being able to put stuff in the cloud and sending it to all the stuff that's out there, Google Analytics and stuff that's going on with Watson and Box has some AI stuff, and start to leverage that way. You're just sending your content of value. Remember, we valued our content. We don't want to run everyday end user generated soccer schedules and all this kind of content through AI stuff. We don't need to, but we know where our content of value is because we did that value chart earlier. That's the stuff we might want to go and run through these AI and machine learning services to let it give us back relevant tags about our content, relevant metadata about it. And then we want to be able to collaborate with our external partners, be able to share this content externally. In the past, everything we've had in the house is, we've used email. Email's been our transport for sharing, and that mess and that risk and that volume is hurting organizations. That's the silver bullet. If someone's going to come in and try to get into your organization, find data about you, they're going to go after your email. Right? So we want to manage, secure, share, and govern all in one place. That's what content services is all about. Make the content searchable, make the content accessible, any device, anywhere. put attention on it. Mentioned a little bit earlier, make sure that every piece of content you create has got an expiration date. While that can change and holds and all that other stuff can make that happen, we're getting towards that thing of regularly deleting content for what we want to do, right? Enriching content using machine learning, AI, we kind of covered this, a lot of this stuff, right? So those tags and that's understanding we get from that content, we could use that to govern our retention. Tags, those metadata and that stuff helps us govern a lot of the content so that we're doing the retention that we want to do, right? Identify business value of content based, business value based on the content of those documents we have, right? Not so much what a user says, but let the content help guide us through that stuff. I'll talk a little bit about auto classification. It's great stuff. I've seen it live. It does work. It requires time. Yes.
Sorry to interrupt. Your screen share just turned off, so maybe you could share your screen again?
Oh, I'm sorry. Thank you.
No worries.
Is it back?
Not yet.
Oh, I wonder if I'm experiencing some. How about now?
Nothing has changed for me yet, unfortunately. I don't know if anyone on the phone is having issues with the screen share. Feel free to submit a question or anything. Since we're close to the end, Jeff, do you just want to continue? I don't know if it's worth trying to.
Yeah,
right now.
I'll kind of talk. I don't know if I have internet access, internet problems or what, but we'll keep kind of talking through this. I don't know what happened, but a little bit about auto classification, right? It takes time, so you need people to be able to find relevant documents so that you can train a knowledge base to understand that. But it's definitely an area that's growing faster. It's becoming a little bit more streamlined. We're making advances to be able to get to models that are consistent along some businesses and stuff like that. But it's still got a ways to go. But it's definitely, for some organizations, it's a step in the right direction. It's a way to go and get the metadata and understanding of your content you need back. The next slide here talks a little bit about enriching your content. I'm not sure if anybody's seen it, but we'll keep talking about it. It's a zone management approach, right? It's understanding your content in 3 areas of importance, right? Content of value, your records, they have business value, longer term retention, governed by policies, and then you can kind of assign these different areas of content to different types of systems, right? So your content of value, you need systems that have governance and have the ability to do metadata and a lot of those advanced features, ECM systems, content services platforms, stuff like that. You have your work in progress, longer term, working files, a little bit longer retention, but the value reduces over time, that type of stuff. Maybe we're looking at SharePoint type content, longer term file shares, the OneDrives of the world, and areas like that to put the work in progress. And then your other types of content is your ROT, right? My documents folders, it's personal, it's monthly type work, maybe that, people go through a monthly cycle of reports and stuff. At the end of the month, none of it matters, we start over. Value decreases rapidly on the content, so we store that someplace else. So you can actually take these areas and apply them to your different areas of where you're able to store content so that you can manage that correctly. And then the last one is really talking about intelligent business processes, accelerating the digital transformation, eliminating paper processes, sharing securely with external collaborators, and again, any device, anywhere type of access. And just some closing remarks. It's not a 3-month project. This takes time over multiple years, right? You can't eat the whole elephant in one shot. You can't boil the ocean, whatever metaphor you like there, but it's a longer term project. Policies for retention, take action. Start now, stop making the problem bigger. If you have policies in place for retention, start looking at ways to apply those so that if the problem just doesn't start growing today. We always tell our clients, get started today. I know this is a little complex, a little daunting, but there's small actions we can take today that stops making the problem bigger. Develop a long-term content strategy, taxonomies, structure, governance. Start looking at that as long-term. It doesn't necessarily apply to the platform you choose, but you should have a content strategy around all those ideas. And then take those value things, identify the easiest ones, your biggest ROI, and just start there. Get a big win right out of the bat. Look at the complex stuff. While the complex stuff might look better, might look like it's a bigger win, it affects the whole company, it's going to be harder to get there. The chances for stumbling and stuff is greater. Go after something a little bit easier, show the win, show the benefit, the ROI, and kind of go for that. And that's my last slide there, Tristan.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And apologies again for our technical difficulties, everyone. Jeff, sorry about that as well. If anyone would like a copy of the slide deck, feel free to reach out to us. It's a great slide deck. Jeff has a lot of great information on it. We do have some questions. I have a really good question from someone in the audience for you, Jeff, asking about the California Consumer Privacy Act. What is the best solution to implement the California Consumer Privacy Act? Do we segment all California consumer transaction activities? And for those on the phone, I had to look this up because I wasn't familiar with it, but it's a bill that just passed a couple weeks ago in California that seems to appear a lot like the GDPR legislation in Europe.
Yeah, absolutely. And quite honestly, it's pretty new. We've been looking at it as well, trying to figure it out. It does follow it does have similarities to the whole GDPR stuff. And one of the ways you're really going to look at this is you have to identify the content that would fall under those regulations and kind of treat that a little bit separately. I know with our GDPR stuff, the content that relates to the customers when we're working with these organizations and that really true customer-centric data, we're taking this data analysis and we're doing that next step of analytics. We have to really get in there and be able to identify peoples and addresses and stuff like that. And we don't want to do that higher level of analytics against everything we have because it may not always apply. So you really have to understand where the regulation applies in your content and then, yes, pass those type of things down upon that content. So that's kind of what we're doing with GDPR. We believe those recs are going to follow similarly, but I think there's still a lot of people trying to fully understand that. They come out and there's some words that kind of scare us, but you need to get into them a little bit deeper. So I think time will tell, but my guess is we're going to follow the GDPR standards when we look at that content. And it's not going to be the last state that does that. So I mean, I think for all of us on the phone, understanding that whether you're in the EU or you're operating in California today, this is going to apply to you. So when we're looking at this stuff, the best bet is to look at GDPR and how do I apply it to my organizational content.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. And just for everyone on the phone, we are a couple minutes over, so thank you for hanging out with us while Jeff answers questions. I want to remind everyone that there is a survey that'll pop up right when you log out. Just 2 questions to give your feedback on how we did today. Jeff, I have one more question for you then. Searching our unstructured content has been a big issue. We want more metadata and tags, but there seems to be no easy solution. What do you suggest?
Yeah, so we talked a little bit about it as we went through there, and what a lot of our, what we're looking at is typical file shares today just does not apply itself well to doing that. The search versus browse, the ability to have metadata to help us govern, and it's just not there. More and more organizations are beginning to look at the content services platform, especially in the cloud. We're talking about the OneDrives of the world, the Boxes of the world, and really getting to that level for a lot of their file share content, right? Because it gives them the ability to leverage maybe folder structures that they've done in the past as metadata. It gives them a little more flexibility on collaborating with that content. So metadata is becoming that, the metadata and tagging are becoming those next big things we need for our content to support the changing workforce, as well as the changing, of our clientele and the people that are using our systems. So I think the best thing for that stuff is really looking at a content services platform and what's offered in these newer, the cloud-based stuff. Even some of the on-prem stuff now is providing that stuff, but getting away from what we're used to in file shares for some of our content that has a little bit more value.
Awesome. Thank you, Jeff. So with that, I will end this presentation. Jeff, I'll let you be the one to sign off for us. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today.
Great. Thanks, Kristen.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff.